How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be running you through the top 10 disc golf discs that I think every player needs to try at least once in their disc golf career. Now, some of these are some of the most popular discs of all time. Others are ones that had their heyday and have since kind of gotten lost in the shuffle of all the new releases and everything. But one thing's for certain, all these discs are tried and true, and at some point were the most recommended disc on the interwebs. I've been playing for a little over a decade, and all of these have had their moment in the spotlight, and for good reason. I personally had all of these in my bag at one time or another, and I genuinely think that they're some of the best discs on the market, period. And I definitely think that there are some that you have to try. Whether you're a brand new player looking to build out your bag, or you're an experienced player and you realize, how the heck have I never tried blank disc? Hopefully this video is entertaining for you. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what disc you're expecting to see on this list. Now, I am going to be running through these in order of disc speed from the slowest to the fastest, so this isn't in any particular order, like this is the number one disc I think you have to try, because they're all pretty much on level playing field. We have some putters, we have some mids, we have some fairways, distance, so on and so forth. So we're gonna run these through from slowest to the fastest. The slowest disc on the list is actually, in my opinion, one of the ones that most of you will probably be surprised is on this list. But when I first got into the sport back in 2015, this was the disc that if you said you were looking for a putter, whether it be a throwing putter or a putting putter, this is basically the one that was always presented as, you got to try this. Everyone has to try this. And for some reason, over the last decade, the narrative has shifted, but this disc remains the same. This disc is incredible. It's one that actually Trevor, who works with us, always relies on. He tries to go away from it, always keeps coming back, which is the Dynamic Discs Judge. This is a super agreeable feeling putter that has a bead. It's a beaded putter. The bead just is this small part that goes around the bottom that helps maintain its stability over time. And what makes the Judge so great is the amount of glide that this thing has, especially if you're a spin putter on the putting green, but really as a throwing putter is where this thing shines. It's dead straight, it has so much glide, and that bead helps it maintain that stability for a while. So what I used to always love was a classic hard Judge. That's more of their baseline harder plastic. I putted with it for a little bit, I threw it for a while, and then more recently I also had a Lucid Judge, which is their premium plastic that I had in my bag. And it's one of the greatest throwing putters on the market, especially if you're looking for a dead straight point and shoot disc. This is the one for you. Next on the list, we're stepping a little bit more into the modern era. This used to be actually a disc that, in my opinion, was the first one that kind of got this company onto the map. There was a lot of people talking about this disc well before it became one of the most popular discs and one of the most popular brands out there, which is the Axiom / MVP Envy. So this disc is, what makes it so unique is, first, MVP Axiom has overmold technology, which essentially means that the outer rim is a different plastic than the inner rim. And what people freak out about this disc and Axiom and MVP in general is the gyroscopic technology, if you will. Essentially, it allows it to maintain RPMs later in the flight, is the claim, which some people claim goes farther, some people claim gives it more stability, so on and so forth. All I know is whether it's the mold, whether it's gyro, I don't know what's going on, this disc is unreal. I really recommend this more as a throwing putter. People putt with it too, but it is beadless, so instead of the beaded on the Judge, if you're looking for a beadless throwing putter, check out the Envy. It has a wide variety of plastic options, and it offers you a flight that will almost push some of the mid-ranges out of your bag. I mean, this throwing putter goes so far, dead straight. Depending on the plastic, some of them have a little bit of stability to them, such as this Eclipse plastic here, but it's super comfortable in the hand. People even like them for touchy forehands. If you're looking for a throwing putter that you can flick, if you roll your wrist, stay away from putters. But if you have a good forehand that you have a lot of good angle control, the Envy is actually an awesome option for that. But mainly, the backhand capabilities on this thing is unreal. You're gonna be amazed at the distance you can get out of the Envy. And if you haven't thrown it, which, if you're watching this video and it intrigues you, you probably haven't, then I definitely think it's one you've got to try. The next disc on the list is probably one that has made pretty much every one of the lists like this that's ever been created, which is no surprise to you, the Discraft Zone. Almost just knocking what you disc off the shelf. This one happens to be stamped with our store's logo, but it doesn't change how awesome the disc is. It's the Overstable approach disc that every other Overstable approach disc kind of wants to be. Discraft perfected the model of this, and it's never really been duplicated, to be honest with you, in my opinion. It's incredible. It's such a consistent forehand disc, backhand disc. It doesn't have a ton of glide, which makes it a really consistent approach disc. You can lean into it on anhyzer, it's gonna fight out, and it's available in so many different plastics that you can really figure out exactly what you want. But if you've never thrown an Overstable approach disc in general, or if you have tried them and you didn't really like them, I highly recommend checking out Discraft Zone. It's a cheat code. I mean, it's the hyzer out finish is one of the most reliable flights in disc golf, and so when you're able to do that on chip shots from like 120 to 300, really all of those and everything in between, approaching the basket, it makes the game so much more simple. You just push it out there and know it's going to fall down towards the basket, and it makes everyone look like a better disc golfer than they actually are. So I'm sure I don't need to park on this much longer because you probably knew this one was coming. The Discraft Zone, you got to try it. This next one, some of you might disagree with me on, but that's okay. It's my video, not yours, and this one has to be on the list. I'm sorry, it just does. It's another one of those where if you wind back time, this would be probably the first disc everyone said had to be on the list. But now here we are, 15 years later, and it's probably going to be a controversial one. But it's the Rock from Innova. This is the classic mid-range, and more why I think people need to throw it is A, if you get a baseline rock, this is a KC Pro, but a DX rock or really any type of baseline rock, and you beat it in, you will achieve one of the most gorgeous flights in disc golf, which is a hyzer flip to slow turn that you can really only accomplish well with an Overstable disc that you beat in to be flippy. They try to create it with flippy discs. It's never the same. If you don't believe me, you just haven't tried it yet. And the KC Pro Rock or the DX Rock or really any baseline rock is the OG in that. I mean, if you go back to coverage back when, pretty much every notable pro was on Innova, they were throwing DX rocks all over the place, and all you ever wanted to do was try it yourself. Modern day disc golf, there's a lot less mold minimalization, a lot more, just premium plastic discs and cycling through that way. So you see, really modern day disc golf, a lot less mid-ranges being thrown, unless you're going to your local courses where you need a lot of mid-ranges. Just because the Pro Tour isn't playing them doesn't mean you aren't. So just because this disc isn't in pros bags anymore doesn't mean it shouldn't be in your bag. If I go out to our local courses, there's a lot of them I don't even touch a driver on, but maybe for 1 or 2 holes, versus the Pro Tour, they're throwing drivers on pretty much every hole. The old Pro Tour used to also have mid-range shots all the time, and when it did, this was the star. So just trust me on this. If you haven't tried a Rock, it's different from a Rock 3. The Rock 3 has a flat top, it's a little bit faster. The Rock has this nice dome to it. It's meant for the backhand throwers out there. It's got a nice overstable flight that, like I said, the real magic comes a few weeks to months after you start throwing a baseline rock once you beat it in. The hyzer flips you get with this thing, it's what disc golf was created on. So if you've never tried a rock, you have to, even if it's just for history's sake, so you understand what built this great sport. Similar to the Discraft Zone, I think this is another one that you knew was going to be on this list eventually. It's kind of funny because it used to be the 1-2 punch, where there was all of these Reddit threads, all of these different articles, people arguing back and forth of rock versus buzz as to what's the greatest mid-range of all time. 2018, 2019, Paul McBeth shifts from Innova to Discraft, and that argument died with that move, because after that, everyone is just throwing the buzz, and like I said, you don't really hear people throw the rock anymore. As Pro Tour courses have gotten longer, people still do throw the buzz pretty consistently because it goes so far. It almost goes as far as fairway drivers. People who throw the buzz really don't have a need for some of the next discs I'm talking about on the list, the 6 and 7 speeds out there, because the buzz really accomplishes a lot of that flight. It starts out just dead straight, especially if you're a flat thrower. This thing just goes straight. If you throw a little hyzer, it's going to hold. It's a true neutral flying disc, and then as it beats up, it does become a nice hyzer flip disc. The buzz has a nice pronounced, or the rock has a nice pronounced bead, whereas the buzz here is beadless. So I think that's where it's a good 1-2. They complement each other very well. But like I said, back in the day, it was always rock versus buzz. When I first started Foundation and we'd be talking on our podcast, we would do like disc of the year polls and stuff like that. And rock and buzz were always the 1-2. People were always arguing between them. And like I said, nowadays, I think the buzz definitively wins that argument as one of, if not the greatest mid-range ever made. So if you haven't tried a Discraft Buzz yet, you have to. And don't look at what pros do with it. Don't look at what YouTubers do with it. Take the buzz out to the field for yourself. Throw it and learn it. That's the best way. The only time people are ever disappointed in a buzz is that they came in with expectations on what it was going to fly like and they let them down because they've seen Drew Gibson throw hyzer flips to turn with it. And newsflash, we're not Drew Gibson. We can't do that. If you just let the buzz be what the buzz is to you, you're probably going to fall in love with this thing. It feels comfortable. It feels great forehand, backhand. And like I said, it's just a neutral flyer that goes so far for a mid-range. So if you haven't tried a buzz yet, there's a reason it's on this list. You got to try it. Now, previously we had talked about before MVP and Axiom were cool, the Envy kind of helped break into the mainstream. Well, there was one more disc that I think did it almost better than the Envy, and that's the next one on this list, which is the Crave. So MVP is one of the main companies that makes that 6-speed slot. A lot of companies have some discs that fall in it, like the Leopard from Innova or the Impact from Discraft, or even the Zombie from Discraft, a better example. But MVP really leans into that 6-speed slot, and what it allows you to do is you have the hand feel of kind of a mid-range with the depth, but the rim feel of a driver and the distance of a fairway driver. And where the Crave really shone and really broke the mold and into the mainstream was how far it went with that mid-range type consistency in your hand. So the Crave is another one of those discs that for all the people who were just, back then we weren't even considering overmold, people were trying out the Crave and being like, holy cow, I'm throwing a 6-speed as far as my 10 and 11 speeds. This is wild. And the Crave has held pretty true to that for a long time. I mean, MVP throwers today will still tell you got to try out a Crave. It's just almost like a longer version of the Buzz. It's dead straight. It beats into a nice hyzer flip. You can get in a bunch of different plastics. If you've never tried the gyro, anything gyro, and you really want to experience, okay, is there something different here? I recommend checking out the Fission Crave, because what Fission is that middle plastic is actually has micro bubbles in it. So it's actually a bigger drastic difference between the middle plastic and the outer rim plastic, which increases the gyroscopic nature of the flight. So if there is anything to it, you're gonna notice it there. And so check out the Crave. That's one that, again, modern day doesn't get recommended nearly as much as it used to, but I still think that most people would agree this is one of those discs you just have to try for yourself. If you find yourself liking the flight and the feel of fairway drivers, especially the 7 speeds that are slightly overstable, chances are the disc you are throwing or have tried out in the past have been based on this disc, which is the Innova T-Bird. This is another one similar to like the Rock and a few other ones I've mentioned where I think some of you might be surprised it's on my list, but it is the classic fairway driver. It is what most of our modern fairway drivers are kind of built on. Some could argue the Eagle, but I think in modern day disc golf, if you look back to when disc golf was really starting to expand and explode, especially in the mid-2010s, the T-Bird was the disc that everyone was talking about. When I first got into disc golf, it was the disc, the fairway driver that everyone was like, you have to try the T-Bird. And I think that still holds true. I think that back then people talked about it a lot more as a straight fairway driver versus, I would argue, it's an overstable fairway driver. But coming in at a 7, I believe it's 7.502, somewhere in that range, it's super consistent, it's super comfortable in the hand, and if you haven't tried it yet, you're missing out. Next on the list, we have probably the newest release on the list, which is the only reason I think this might be controversial, but it fills a slot that I think everyone needs in their bag because it's such an agreeable flight for all skill levels, which is the Discraft Passion. It's a very neutral flying 8-speed, and this slot has kind of, over time, been filled by a lot of different discs. I almost went with the Discmania FD because that was the one that used to fill it, but to be honest with you, I think the Passion fills it better. It's very comfortable in the hand, it is such a controllable flight, and it's a little bit less stable than the modern day Discmania FD, which I think makes it the actual one that should fill this slot because newer players are gonna be able to throw this flat or even a little bit of Anheuser and get very consistent flights out of it. A little bit more experienced players are gonna be able to throw this thing flat, have it go dead straight, maybe have a little bit of a finish. And then I've seen pros like Brody and Ezra throw this on hyzer, get flip up and turn, and everyone has a good use for the Passion. And with a super comfortable hand feel and a very agreeable flight, this one had to be on my list. To be honest with you, I think it is my current favorite disc to recommend to people. It won the 2024 Foundation Disc Golf Disc of the Year, and for a great reason. It's, really the only thing people don't like about the Passion is some people don't like the rim bead and the feel in their hand, but I've never heard someone throw the Passion and not like the flight. So if you haven't tried out a patch, or maybe that rim bead's been keeping you back, I don't know what else would keep you away from it because it's in gorgeous Discraft plastic, but for whatever reason, if you haven't tried it, you're definitely missing out on this one. It's one of those discs that once you throw it, you're gonna realize you needed it. This next one, in my opinion, it's in a similar slot as the Discraft Zone. People are gonna disagree with me on that, but I think it's a disc that really ushered in this type of disc into the popularity, into the general public's desire to throw, and has been often attempted to be duplicated, but it never has been. There's only one disc that flies like this out there, in my opinion. There's a bunch of them that try. They're either more overstable, less overstable, or less consistently overstable, which is, I think, a big problem for a lot of them, and that is the Innova Firebird. This thing is money, especially Champ Firebirds. They are just so awesomely overstable. And what's nice about the Firebird is it's not ever really going to flip up on you straight out of the box. That's the problem that you run into with a lot of other ones, but it's also controllably overstable. Very, very rarely, if ever, you're gonna find one that's just so overstable you can't throw, which is the problem with other ones. I'm yet to find a disc that is as consistently overstable as the Firebird, and the good news about the Firebird is if you get a max weight Champ Firebird, especially if you get a board flat one, you really aren't gonna ever need another one. I have one that's been in and out of my bag. I bought it the 2015 USDGC, which as of shooting this video is literally a decade ago. It's got road rash all on the side, it's hit a bunch of trees, and I can still throw it as hard as I want on Anheuser. It's still gonna come out, fight, and finish like a Firebird should. The only reason I ever put a new one in the bag is because I got a Champ Halo one at last year's USDGC, and I just like the look of it more. But the flight hasn't changed. I have a bunch of Firebirds, and most of them never made it in my bag because it's just that consistent, and it just doesn't really change. So the Firebird was, in my opinion, one of the first utility overstable discs back in the day, pre everyone getting into Discraft, and a lot of the main pros were sponsored by Innova. What guys would actually do is it was hard to find a flat top gator that was as overstable as they wanted to for forehand. So a lot of people were throwing approach discs with Firebirds back then, which is very funny, but that's what was going on. And so nowadays you don't have to do that, luckily, but you still need a really consistent, overstable driver that you can rely on. And that, for me, will always be the Firebird. And last but certainly not least, we have one final disc on this list. And funny enough, this actually wouldn't be my first choice for this slot, but as I was making the list, I think this is the more agreeable choice for the slot when we're talking about discs that everyone should throw, which is going to be the Innova Wraith, the only distance driver on the list. Now, personally, I'm a Destroyer fan, but the Wraith is just a slightly slower version of the Destroyer, and especially in Star Plastic, Halo Star Wraiths like this one here are really a lot of times nice and overstable, but especially in Star Plastic, the Wraith will actually give you a little bit more turn and be a little bit more of an agreeable flight for most players. So that's why I end up going with the Wraith over the Destroyer, but I still think that an Innova distance driver, even back in the day, pros were between the Destroyer and the Wraith, again, paved the way for a lot of the modern day distance drivers we see. They were in every notable pro's bag, and what's interesting is you'll notice when pros go to mixed bags, the Destroyer or the Wraith is a lot of times one of the first discs back in their bag. Is that because it's the best on the market, or is it just because they're sentimental and it's what they used to throw? I don't know, you can be the judge, but for me, I'm gonna say that the Wraith is one of those distance drivers that you just gotta try. It's super comfortable in the hand, forehand, backhand, super controllable flight, and it just goes so far. The Wraith, the Destroyer, they're brothers. You can even go all the way up to its big brother, the Boss, but I'm never that crazy. And they're awesome. So that's gonna round out the list today. Let me know in the comments down below. You agree with me, disagree with me? Where do you think different discs should have been? Or what do you think should replace one of the discs on the list? I'd love to see all your comments. And let me know also what ranking video you would like to see next. I'll talk to you then.